Yes, and the Human Rights Agency has been enjoined in the case where 2 lobby groups want Parliament compelled to pass the 2/3 gender rule. Now, of course, this debate has been going on, and of course, we saw the Senate fail completely. The National Assembly has failed to pass this rule. Now, today being an all-female panel, and yes, it's good to see all-female aspirants on one table, but we know it may not be that easy when it comes to the elections next year, and probably there needs to be affirmative action towards that end. When we see our legislative arm fail to actually entrench this part of the Constitution in law, what do you feel as a woman?
We have a problem because our wage bill in Parliament or in government is a little bit bloated. That we are headed there. You can see we brought in the 47 women from different counties. The main agenda of bringing this is of putting this lot is actually to achieve the 2/3 gender role, whereby either side, if the men are more, then you have to top up for the ladies, and if the ladies are more, then you have to top up for the men. But basically what I can say, what we are doing right here is towards getting the 2/3, because if we are women and we are going for elective seats, that shows we are trying to actually bridge that gap, whereby more women will be in elective seats than there were there before. For me, I would come out and say, I would appeal to Kenyans, ladies who you feel you've got leadership skills, you feel you've got what it takes to be a leader, come out strong, so that if the ladies are elected more, then we'll have fewer men. Then we'll stop having this problem that we have in Parliament. Because if the men go out and get the seats, then we'll still continue having the same problem. So I think what the government should do right now is actually fund the ladies who are running for seats, or actually empower them, be it civic education, be it educating them on leadership skills, be it whatever it takes to make sure that they get the seat way ahead of time, instead of them losing the seat and then later on we'd have to top it up. Because if you look at the 5 years that we have moving forward after the elections, the 5 years, the amount of money that is spent on the ladies who are actually brought in by nomination, it is much more than what you can give right now for that same lady to go back mashinani and be able to do a proper campaign, whereby maybe her chances she would get the seat.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's an argument between legislating everything, that you have to legislate, come up with a law that will ensure that women are in Parliament, vis-a-vis having women go out mashinani and actually vie for the seats.
I want to comment on this not as a woman, but as part of the 67% of Kenyans who voted yes for this Constitution. And if we voted for this Constitution, and the Constitution had a transition period of 5 years, which obviously ended last year, 2015, in August 27th. By the end of those 5 years, all the provisions within the Constitution ought to have been implemented. But again, there was a clause that gave the Parliament an opportunity to extend by 1 year any of the things that were not implemented. And indeed, therefore, Parliament extended by 1 year to August 27th, 2016, this year, what they did not manage to implement. And one of those was the gender bill. The gender issue is included in the major part of that Constitution. And it clearly states that no elective or appointive position shall have more than 2/3 of either gender. And there's no negotiation about that. There's no may, it is shall, meaning that it's a dictate. Now, if we pass that Constitution, and if we say that the Constitution is the supreme law of this land, you cannot start being selective on which part of the Constitution to implement and which part not to implement. So Parliament has totally failed. And today, not as a woman, but as a Kenyan who voted for that Constitution, I would say that Parliament is actually standing as an illegal entity. Why? Because it has not followed what the Constitution says.
Okay, but some may argue that you do not necessarily have to have a law to ensure that Parliament has to get more seats for women who
they
are not
must have
elected.
a mechanism.
What about parties? What about political parties? Shouldn't it start there, and that probably parties should be urged to encourage more women to run for elected seats?
Let me tell you something. First of all, let's not lose what she's just said. We really need to send them home. That will be the best way. And this is why you have the 4 independent bodies in a state. The judiciary, if it functions well and without interference, will actually dissolve Parliament. Because Parliament extended by a year, that's all they had. Right now they are completely time-barred. The Attorney General warned against this. They're still taking it very lightly. They should go home.
Yes.
Period. Because they failed to uphold the requirements of the Constitution in as far as the gender role. But now, when you're saying that women, the gender role, for me, most countries are moving into 50-50. Men, women, balanced in any leadership position.
Through legislation or through affirmative action?
In Kenya, no. In Kenya, it's from legislation because there was no way it's going to happen otherwise. All right, because the men were controlling everything and they were not letting the women come in any position. Even right now, if you look at all the appointments on state, there's definitely a total imbalance. So we need to empower the woman from within the law. And the law was passed by all Kenyans, men and women. So we have to uphold the law. We went so far into getting this constitution. Why are we watering it down on one important issue, the gender issue? And we're not even saying 50-50 here. We're saying no one gender more than 2/3. All right, so that means at least 33% will be women at this point.
Are we saying that our society is not capable of electing at least 1/3 of women?
On this particular issue, my take is there is no way we want to pass the 2/3 gender role and we don't have a formula of how we are going to get to that, because eventually it will come hunting us down. Because if we do not empower the woman to come out and actually go for this elective seat, we'll have the same problem, and if anything, we'll have a burden worse. Because if these same women, yes, let's assume it's passed, right? That's good, that's great. How are we going to implement it? So instead of just looking forward first at let's pass it, let's first empower the women so that the same women will come out for elective seats. Instead, again, of bloating our wage bill, and then we say Kenya is actually going bankrupt. Kenya is having issues. Like now, how many members of parliament do we have? Very many. And why? Because the ladies who are nominated, in my county assembly, I'm a nominated MCA in Nairobi County right now. How many women are there? Nominated 42. These women, to be very honest, most of them are going there, and even in parliament, they're just becoming flower girls because they just were handpicked from somewhere else. Get women to run for seats. So our first initiative and mandate should be to empower women. Let women come out strong, because if a few women are elected, then we have kicked out a few men, then we start balancing from there.
I think let's get this right. Let's just get this right. Parliament is not passing any law on the gender bill. That was part of the law that was passed in the Constitution. So we are not asking Parliament to pass that law. Let's get that right. What Parliament is asked to do is to come up with the mechanism of entrenching or enforcing that law of 2/3. That's what Parliament is doing. And that is where they failed to get the mechanism. We already have a mechanism for that in the county assemblies that has worked well, even if my friend, who is a beneficiary of that mechanism, is actually saying that they are
well empowered right now to go for an elective one. Right now I'm not going back for a nominated, but I'm going for an elective.
But that's really
that means I have been empowered enough.
But what has empowered her is the fact that that mechanism was made available. Because without that mechanism, without that mechanism, she would not have been nominated. She would not have been a beneficiary, and she would not have been in that county assembly. So just the way she's a beneficiary of that is what we are saying, that when it comes to the National Assembly, and in the Senate it also worked, when it comes to the National Assembly, Parliament should actually come up with a mechanism to enforce that law that had already been passed as part of the Constitution.
So the parties will run with it. The parties will now ensure that when they're giving out nominations, they've got a balance, and they will have women. I mean, for elections, not for...
Away from nominations, because I find it a bit unfair to assume that women should just sit back and wait to be nominated.
No, when I say nominations, hold on. You see, the thing is, if you're a political party and you're getting funding from the state, and you know that the rule is there, that your party should field 2/3, you're going to make sure that there's opportunity. You're actually going to then have to empower the woman, because otherwise you're not going to be constituted well in as far as parliament, and you should not be getting funding. So every political party should strive to ensure that they adhere to this rule. These are rules that are enshrined in our constitution. Why are we even talking about it? So for me, I just hope that they will actually be dissolved and sent home. And
perhaps ODM is probably the biggest party currently in parliament, the biggest single party in parliament. And what, as a deputy organizing secretary, do you think your party has done enough in terms of empowering women to actually run for elective seats, as opposed to just wait to be nominated to parliament?
I don't think when you say wait to be nominated, women are not sitting and waiting to be nominated. And I want to give an example of myself. I've run for the seat of Kisumu Town West, when that constituency was called Kisumu Town West, in 2007, and made a very good show of it, right up to the ballot. I ran again in Kisumu West in 2013 on an ODM ticket. And this is what I want to say about ODM. At that particular time, in 2013, the deadline for names to be submitted, names of candidates to be submitted to IEBC, was January 21st. So all the nominations should have actually ended by January 19th. ODM in that part of the country was not able to run to meet the deadline that was set by IEBC. And ODM therefore chose to give me the certificate, not because of anything, but because of its attempt to try to encourage and motivate more women to participate in the actual general election.
As a direct nomination?
We had issues because we were not able to do our nominations. But ODM used its constitution, which says that they stand for encouraging women and increasing the number of women representation in parliament, and they actually handed the certificate to me.
Yeah, I mean, they did
that
maybe. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not coming out very clear. I need to drive my point and say this. I am not disagreeing that there should be nominations, but before we get to nominations, so that we can bring down the numbers of members of parliament, we have the numbers of members of county assembly we have, can we first empower the ladies who are willing to run for elective seats right now, instead of later on saying, oh, let's stop up. That is all I'm saying, because if we look at it right now, from our history that we've had, most of the ladies are not able to push proper campaigns because of lack of resources. Or maybe because of lack of political education on how to run campaigns. So we should be taking them for seminars. We should be training how to tackle their fellow counterparts who are men. We should be empowering them. We should be, because if we don't do that, we'll have the same predicament we have over and over and over again. But if the government steps in right now, if the political parties step in right now and go and fish out for all ladies who are running for seats, put them aside and tell them, we are not saying that the members of the men are not fit enough, but what we want is to support you so that you can get the seat. That's all I am saying.
And as we move on to the next story,
can I just say something before you finish here? I don't think the government, what she's saying, that the government, giving the government that responsibility, the government would not take it.
I said the parties.
The government cannot take it up. Yes, you know why? When this government has an opportunity to actually effect the 2/3 gender rule,
they haven't done it.
It shies away. It doesn't do it. Look at it when the president actually appoints its cabinet. Does he care about the 2/3 gender rule? Look at when he makes any appointments to the parastatal. Does he care about the gender rule? When two positions exist, he would rather promote a man into the next position and say no woman was qualified. So it's too much. It's almost asking too much of this government. And I tell you, if you're in a family and children see their father being careless about something, the children will follow suit. So what Parliament is doing is actually following suit, because they see the head of this country, the executive, they see the executive careless in its attitude when it comes to the 2/3 gender rule. So they're just following suit. So thinking that the government is going to do it for you,
both sides are, and that is why maybe majority of these people who are in power should come out, because if they're not doing the right thing, you cannot specifically just say it's the government, because also the opposition are following suit. So basically the opposition have moved from opposition, now they're the JP.
Incidentally,
opposition appointing government
looking at the Jubilee Party, and a few weeks back, I remember discussing it on the panel here, because once the president hosted these party leaders at State House when they came to declare their intention to dissolve, and they took a photo. It was on the front page of the Daily Nation and the front page of the Standard, and there were like 3 women.
One almost at the corner, the tail end of this.
And someone was hidden behind.
Looking intimidated.
That is why I said this country has got a long way when it comes to empowering women, and we should make it our key, our core agenda to actually empower women more, starting from the small levels of children going to school. You see, our president is so passionate about education. Education for girl child, education for boy child. None of the genders are left behind. So it is a long way. We cannot say Uhuru Muigai and William Samoei Ruto is the one that is going to bring all the women on board. It is something that is transitional. It is something that is, we have to start here. We take baby steps, we move forward. And from where we are coming from right now, you can see, as much as we are not appreciating that the ladies were brought in this current government, you can imagine in Bunge we have so many. So we cannot say during the new constitution, we are the protectors and defender of this constitution. We made it. We actually passed it.
Yes. And finally, Esther Passaris, do you still believe, do you think that politics in Kenya is still a game for the big boys? That probably there's no room for women really have to fight hard to break into that
It is, and but it's in all positions. Even when we're looking at the CJ, right? You're looking at the deputy being a woman rather than the main person, the CJ himself. But I'll tell you what, the space will change with more of us coming out and running. People ask me sometimes, why are you going into the governor's seat? And if you hear the conversation around it, oh, there's so many men, you can't do it. But you know what? I want to do this all the way to the end. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose at this stage. It's showing other women that this is possible. You don't have to, and this is why I've refused to go for women rep. I'm saying, you know what? I did that. Now let my friend here and other women come out. Let me go for the governor's seat so that you can understand that the governor's seat can also be taken by women. I want more women to come up for the governor's seat, because right now we have 47 governors, all of them are men. Now the question is, again, the party needs to invest in you all the way from the beginning. The investment is there, but you've got to present yourself as a woman. You've got to come out and say, I'm interested in this position. And then you've got to do your thing, go on the grassroots, make people aware, make some difference. Unfortunately, they look at the polls and they say, oh, you don't have a chance or you have a chance. But women, we cannot shy away from getting into the battlefield. We've got to get into the battlefield, fight for this position and get recognized. You know, I'll tell you one thing, we have a way of looking at women and putting down women. You know, when people look at me, they say, oh, you're just like a man. And then when they look at Amina, when they look at Amina right now and they say she's the working minister, they say she's the only man in Uhuru's government. I mean, this is the way, that the only thing a man can do it. I think you've got to start looking at us as women and looking at how we, when empowered, can do a fantastic job. And then also, this country has a huge issue with corruption. And I think the only way to really resolve that issue is get more women into positions of government, where the decisions of money and government expenditure are handled and controlled by women. Because we've seen the abuse with men. I mean, if you look at the county government, most of the abuse, right, you've got a lot of men in there handling key officer positions. So we need to make sure that the gender rule passes. Once it is rule, it is law, you have to make sure that you fill in the positions of women. And as I'm saying, this is just 2/3. Right? There's going to come a time that will be 50-50. And that is a time for our grandchildren if we continue the fight today. And for me, I just hope that there's a way that once we realize that the parliament is unconstitutional, that there is enough people. I'm even looking at that option myself, right? Because right now you've got 2 bills on the floor. They're already time-barred. I don't know what they're going to do. So
slowly the perception of politics being just a men's club will change. Yes. We see that in the last parliament, 16 women actually got elected through their single constituencies. And with support, despite the challenges that women face, I think this will change. Okay. And I think next year more women will actually be elected from single constituencies.
Yes. Definitely. Now, a lot has happened over recent weeks, and including Parliament failing to expunge that clause from the Joint Select Committee's report on party hopping. And now it means party hopping is no longer applicable. We are seeing Jubilee party merging all the smaller parties, breaking up all the smaller parties and forming into one. What does that do to the prospects of women? Are you guaranteed that you'll get fair nomination within the Jubilee party for you to run for county women?
I can say it has its own pros and cons, but I think the pros are more that before we get to getting free and fair nominations, it's a tall order, to be very honest. I'm in JP. I'm appreciating what we are doing because we want a party that has more of ideologies and policies, and like just a vessel to ferry you from one election to the next. I mean, like, it shouldn't just be a party, shouldn't just be something that you use to get elected or to be knocked out before everything else. So what I can say is this idea, I am for it, but they had better work very hard to getting free and fair nominations. It has not been done before, to be very honest. Both Political Divide Code and Jubilee have not had the best nominations. I cannot sit here and commend them that they've been very free and fair. But moving forward, we cannot sit back and just cry the whole time and say that this is not going to be done.
Were you thinking that there could be a possibility that failure for you to secure the ticket from
No, I'm actually a strong believer I will get my seat for women representative this Nairobi because as they said, chama si ya mtu. You go mashinani, grassroots, unavaa jeans, unavaa whatever you wear, you work hard, you talk to your electorate, you sell your policies, you sell your ideologies, you get the seat in popular vote. But however, if we are going to do it that way, the parties have to be very firm and strict on giving the ticket to the person who got the most votes from mashinani. On the cons, if it goes like it has been before, then most popular people will be locked out. And if they're locked out,
and a lot of women will be locked out.
And a lot of women will be locked out. So it is something that I'm challenging the people who are going to run the parties. I'm challenging JP itself in particular, and saying the people who they put in the secretariat right now, the people who they elect, let them be people who are passionate about the party, let them be people who are going to sell more of the party policies and ideology other than just getting people who want to be there for power. Yes.
I'm going to talk for ODM. And I want to say that as Deputy Organizing Secretary, ODM will have free and fair elections. For our strongholds.
No direct nomination.
There will be, I said this last week and I'll say it again, there will be no direct nominations in ODM. And for our strongholds, we are actually looking into the possibility of having IEBC conduct those nominations in our strongholds.
Oh.
And I want to say that there is no way that women will be locked out if the elections or nominations are free and fair.
Okay.
Yes.
And if that is the way that ODM wants to go, I would encourage more women to come out and seek those positions, because they will be guaranteed that if they win, nobody will refuse to give them the certificate.
Okay. Esther,